Well, it's Friday. It's time for another edition of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm your host, Steve Casillo, and we appreciate you being here today. Today, whether you are watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or listening to the podcast on your favorite podcast player, yes, thanks for being here. It is one day before the weekend. It is the day where we always bring in, right over there, Phillip Washington Jr., our financial guru, our financial philosopher. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Steve? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And say hi. By the way, it's now official. We've done the study, Mansfieldians.
How's it going, Mansfieldians?
Yeah. Today's going to be a great topic because it hits home to both of us. Taking a deep dive into the parallels between the podcast industry and the music industry, and now also me being a musician, kind of. Oh yes, let's,
double dipping.
So I may have an opinion or two.
Yes, please step in because you're absolutely an expert in this realm.
So you have your own podcast, Wealth Building Made Simple, and you also did a segment on this actually earlier today. And so I'm going to let you step into it, and then I may interject as we're going along.
Yeah, you can take media and then put it into a category of business, right? Just like you have startups or technology, you have media, and they have financial investors that are getting into it, and then you also have the evolution of media, because media just follows the tension, right? The goal of media, right? If you have an economy, and then you have people that want products, and then you have the creator of products, right? Then you're going to have some way of communicating your value to the marketplace, and that's what media is. And so media evolves, but media follows the attention of the generations. And so when you understand that, then you go, okay, so cable TV, right? Cable TV is the media outlet channel for the boomers. That's what the boomers invented. Gen X kind of expanded on it, and they did that. And then the internet came. The internet was the media of like Gen X and millennials, right? And like podcasting is like now millennials and Gen Z. And so if you follow, just like when I talk about investing, if you follow the trends of where the new generation is going, but you do that with media, and just like investing, if you get in early, right, you participate in a lot of the upside. Same with media. And so if Gen X and if millennials and Gen Z are only 20 and 30, right, and they're going to get more money and buy more stuff and grow up, and you go, oh, and their attention, right? Because by the way, like I don't watch cable like outside of like sports. But
in our house, it's like, what's cable?
Yeah, what definitely don't watch TV. So you go, oh, and then like 20-year-olds definitely don't watch it. They're like on social media.
Yeah,
YouTube.
They're streaming.
Yeah, And so then you go, okay, creating content on the internet is gold because we grow up, we get more money, and then those who like own the territory in their specific niche and their spot are going to make tons of money. But we're at the pinnacle now where money is moving in, like aggressively.
Right. And so how the podcast relating to the music industry. So the music industry started a century ago, and that those that got in early, the record companies, the executive producers, the money behind it were those that made. I mean, sure, the Rolling Stones made a lot of money, but those that were behind the Rolling Stones, the Michael Jacksons, the Beatles, and so on, were the big money makers,
the billionaires,
and those that are behind the podcast. Spotify is huge, obviously Google, Apple, and so on. But as it trickles down, all right, not every podcast is going to be on the level of the Rolling Stones, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do a podcast.
Right. Because like in the music, right, how many executives do you know or people do you know that were making $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year, like in the industry, that nobody knows about that were like happy, right? They got to be an A&R, right? Sourcing talent. They got to be a radio host. They got to do the production. They got to do the video, right? They got to say, I get, even if it's 120,000 a year, I get to make whatever I make doing what I love, right? And I mean, like, what's the price of that?
Exactly. And there was a saying that is doing what you love. A saying that says, do what you love, not love what you do. Do what you love comes organically. Love what you do sounds forced. Even though it's the same words, just juxtaposed. And yeah, it's so when it comes to podcasting, love what you do. And actually, this I've told this many times. My studio. I mean, I'm in a 400 square foot room, but this is my playground. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work. That's because I do what I love.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And once you do what you love, then you remove. I feel like anytime you remove stress, it also opens up the mind to money-making opportunities. And so if you're doing what you love, you don't feel stressed, which means like you're open to serendipity, or people call luck.
Yeah.
Or ideas or things that are going to come to you because you're like, oh yeah, I'm loving what I'm doing. And so like I listed out some money-making opportunities.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this. We'll talk about ways to make money in podcasting, because the level of money, the different types of money you can make in podcasting are like infinite, right? I mean, infinite. But here's some easy ones that people can know. The obvious one is like advertising, right? People know, yeah, you get a podcast, you can advertise, you can make money advertising. And so that's a no-brainer.
Right. And people know that through the About Mansfield podcast, is that, yes, we do run commercials. The commercials help keep the lights on, thank you, and help pay our rent because we do lease the space where we are. And so through the advertisers, it helps keep us on the air.
Yep. And that parallels to music because like a lot of musicians are paid to sponsor different brands.
Sure.
Premium subscriptions, like in the podcast space, that's similar to like selling your content. And so for a long time, content in podcasting was free, right? And this podcast and my podcast, your podcast and my podcast is still free. But a lot of podcasters are moving into saying, okay, now I'm going to have some deeper level content that goes deeper, that's paid, that you got to pay for to get access to, so you can have Apple has subscriptions built into their platform. Like I have a newsletter, Wealth Building Made Simple.us, which is deeper, more insightful content around this. Matter of fact, like I'm going to accompany my recent episode about this with 4 ways to make $1 million in podcasting, like the actual like examples with the math behind it, so you can expand your mind around it, and also around like finance in the media industry. So that's the option that's really early, but it's getting bigger and bigger. Like a lot of the podcasters are now creating premium content.
Yeah.
With the content, live events and merchandise sale, right? I mean, selling T-shirts, cups, same way that hip hop or music artists tour and get paid. Podcasters are doing that, not going to do that, like actually doing that now.
Merchandise. Are mouse pads still a thing?
I haven't had a mouse pad since like college.
All right, so no. All right, bumper stickers. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then the last sponsoring content.
Sponsoring content. So that people say, how's that different than advertising? Well, that is similar to like let's say this company over here doesn't have a podcast, but they want to. I'm gonna pick a bank. They want to do a series. They want to connect with small business owners. They don't have a podcast, so they can find about Mansfield. It would be smart. It would be smart for every bank in Mansfield to say, "Hey, we want to bank all these people, and we're calling them, and everybody's calling them. But if the bank called Steve and said, "Hey, Steve, we'll pay you whatever," so
Well, in full disclosure, isn't that what you and I are doing?
yeah, 100%.
It's also what.
But this specifically is advertising. It's a bit different where if a bank comes to you and say, "Hey, Steve, I want to interview the 10 wealthiest business owners in Mansfield, and we're going to do a series about business ownership in Mansfield."
Yeah.
And so then they are going to get the 10 wealthy business owners that won't answer their call. Right? They're gonna answer their call because either you or them call them. They're gonna interview them. They're gonna put money on it. They're gonna shower with with ads around the clips or whatever. And now they have a relationship with them. And then they gave exposure to business owners. And so before they came in and asked for their business, they given the business owners lots of value. They built brand recognition. Right? That's an example of a content sponsorship partner where it has nothing to do with because with advertising it's all about how many listeners do you get, Steve, right? This one is different where it's no, here's an idea. You have a problem, you need to get in front of these 10 people, right? So if you pay me the money, we'll do it for you, right? And then we'll amplify it by using our distribution and also Facebook ads and clips to amplify the distribution. So it's you can have a podcast with no listeners and make $1 million a year just doing this for other brands that you're using their money to help expand their marketing because they don't have the expertise to do it, but you do.
And that's you were spot on with podcasts open doors. If you go to it may not be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but if it's someone local, a CEO, a businessman, a multimillionaire, or whatever. Hey, I'd like to interview you on my podcast. Oh, sure, sure. It's amazing how many doors they have opened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people go, "Oh, how do you know that person?" I asked them to do my podcast.
Interview them on my podcast. We've got about a minute or so left. Let's summarize this, and then we'll get into your contact information.
So podcasting is big. If you run a business and you're not podcasting, you're probably going to lose to a competitor. If you're looking for ways to invest money, invest in the podcast industry. If you're looking for ways to express a career and make money in a way that is super exciting, fun, and new, podcast, it's wide open.
And it's not too. We're not too late now, are we?
This is like Hollywood 1917.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good. It's still young.
It's super young.
If someone wanted to reach out to Phillip Washington Jr. for more information, not only on the podcast industry, but if you have financial questions about your nest egg, your 401k, or maybe even your 501k.
501k.
How can they?
That's what we do. We do 501k. Wealth building.
That's right, because we're a step above.
Step above the rest. Yeah. Wealthbuildingmadesimple.us is the best source because that's the newsletter where we put out great content. You can subscribe and ask me any question you want, and we'll educate you, give you an educational answer on your questions.
Phillip Washington Jr., we do this every Friday, and appreciate you being here. Let's do it again next week.
Thanks, Steve.